there has been absolutely no word on the future of Doctor Who past the end of the recent Season 2. Of course, we can speculate, and indeed, as a fandom, we have done a lot of that. But that's not what this video is. This isn't speculation of what I think will happen necessarily, but what it is what I think should happen. What would be the best thing for Doctor Who going forward? And I'd like to hear your opinions if they differ to mine, or your thoughts on my opinions on this in the comments down below. So what should happen next? Here's my view. Welcome to Culture Filter, my channel where I like to talk about all the geeky pop culture that I like and consume. I am Phil, and if you like Doctor Who, do hit subscribe down below, because I talk about it a lot on this channel. Now, we're talking about the future of Doctor Who, not speculation about what will happen, but what I think should happen now. Because we're in a situation where the future is in flux and in doubt. It looks like Disney Plus probably won't renew their distribution deal they've got with the BBC for distributing Doctor Who outside of the UK. Although we don't know that for certain. For all we know, they might do a surprise renewal at the last minute. I doubt it, but if they do, it will certainly be a renegotiation, and they will have been asking for certain new things to happen. We're also in a situation where we've got lots of dangling plot threads left by the last couple of seasons, things that have been set up yet not paid off yet, that is very unsatisfying for viewers. We've had a lot of behind the scenes drama, most of which we don't really know the full picture of, but we do know that something went down and caused rewrites at various stages of the last few years that have impacted the story that was ended up being told, and that culminated in Ncuti Gatwa leaving earlier than he probably would have done otherwise. And we've all been speculating and giving our opinions about what will happen or what should happen, and I want to give mine. I know there's people out there that are saying like it should just have a 5 to 10 year rest. I don't agree with that. I think there are people out there saying completely ditch Russell T Davies straight away and ignore any dangling plot threads. I don't agree with that either. There are people that are out there saying we just need to straight away go in with a new production team. And I don't necessarily disagree with the new production team thing, but the timetable of it, I think there's something where we can merge things so we get the best of all worlds, so that we don't get a huge gap between episodes of like 5 years, that we don't get dangling plot threads not resolved, but that we do get a fresh new approach to the series, which I think the series probably needs. So those unsolved mysteries, to recap, the main ones I see, there are a few more obviously, but these are the big ones that I think need to be dealt with in some way. That is Susan. The teasing of Susan. There was obviously going to be a plot thread going into season 3 regarding Susan. That was the original plan by the looks of it, but that is now, in jeopardy. You've got the stuff about the boss, and you've got that regeneration at the end and whatever's going on with Billie Piper. Those are the 3 things that I think need to be dealt with in some form. There are other little things like Rogue, what's going on with Rogue, are we going to meet him again? Little things like that I think can just be kind of abandoned if you need to, but the big ones are those 3, and I really want to see them wrapped up. So here's what I'm thinking. Now, I'm not saying these are even possible, let alone likely, but it is what I think would be best for the show, and that is to let Russell T Davies make a completely BBC-funded Christmas special, or maybe even 2 Christmas specials, depending on the time scale. I think if they haven't gone into production on one yet, the likelihood of getting one out for 2025 Christmas is extremely unlikely, but not completely impossible if it's a very pared down one, which I think these would need to be anyway, if they are completely BBC funded. Because the reason the BBC has to partner now with streamers for a lot of their dramas, this isn't just a Doctor Who thing, this is all over, is that TV drama has gotten so expensive to make, more expensive than it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And that's even without the increased production values that they want from a show like Doctor Who. But you've also got the timescale. So I think you could get out a very pared down, minimal cast Christmas special. It would be a different type of Christmas special than we're used to, but I think it's just about possible to get that out for this Christmas. But definitely you could do a pared down, fairly cheap Christmas special for next Christmas to resolve these plot threads. One story, maybe even a feature-length 90-minute thing to just resolve everything that has been set up over the last several years that is unresolved, and really put a bookend on the Russell T Davies era. End it properly. Now, if you do manage to get one out this Christmas special, you could do that as 2 Christmas specials and have it next year, because I think the time will be needed to set up for the next part of this. So then what comes after that? Well, I think we do need a bit of a changing of the guard here. I think we possibly do need a whole new creative team behind Doctor Who to relaunch the show again in a much more accessible way than the last relaunch with season 1 and the specials before it were. Because those specials, they weren't really accessible. They started with David Tennant giving the monologue about his history with Donna. That's how this era started. It was not an accessible era, it was a calling back to the fans. And that's kind of because it was the 60th, yeah, but that's not how you start a brand new accessible era on a new streamer. And then the whole era has been littered with callbacks and references to the past, and you can do those sort of things in accessible ways. I just don't think they did do them in accessible ways this time. They did the callbacks and introducing classic series villains really well in Russell T Davies's first era. They reintroduced the Daleks, the Cybermen, the Master, the Macra, the Sontarans. They introduced, not even just the big 3, but other classic series monsters in a way that was accessible, and you didn't leave feeling, oh, I'm confused because I haven't seen that previous episode. That didn't really happen this season, and it kind of felt very, I imagine, I'm not a new fan obviously, but I imagine it felt like it would have felt very isolating for new fans. So we need an intro more like 2005, where it's a fresh start. All the previous seasons happened, but you don't need to reference them all the time. You can drip feed some things in an accessible way at some point. Hell, 2006 we got Sarah Jane Smith coming back, but even that was done in a really accessible way that you didn't need to have seen the Tom Baker, her introduction with John Pertwee or her time with Tom Baker to get her in that episode. Here's the other thing I think they do. They need to think about the format that they are releasing these in. The 2005 format might have worked again, but we live in an era of much more serialization, and I actually think Doctor Who Flux had kind of the right idea, but at the wrong time. The wrong time because they didn't introduce this new format of a series telling a whole story, a season telling a whole story at the beginning of a Doctor's era. When we've had shifts of format in the past, they've come at the beginning of Doctor's eras. There was little shifts during the modern era from obviously 2005 was a shift from the classic format, but I'd say even to Matt Smith, there was a shift in tone and a slight shift in how story arcs were told then. And going back to the classic series, John Pertwee's shift in format was at the beginning of his era, and that made it a lot more sellable, and it helped a lot with ratings at the time. So Flux, I think, was the right idea at the wrong time. We needed that back in Series 11, that kind of shift, but it came too late for the 13th Doctor's era. But now, with a new Doctor hopefully coming, we can do that shift. We can get more serialization. I'm going to keep open-minded about who could run that, but one name that has been bandied about is J Michael Styczynski. I can never pronounce his last name. Styczynski. You know who I mean, the Babylon 5 guy. The guy that came up with and show ran Babylon 5. He was doing serialization in the 90s. Really good serialization in the 90s with Babylon 5. Now, hilariously, I have seen some anti-woke people saying he should be the showrunner, which is hilarious because they either haven't watched Babylon 5 in a very long time or totally didn't understand it, because there is so much political commentary in Babylon 5. It is ridiculous and really good. I'm not ridiculous in a bad way. There's just a lot of it, and it is really progressive stuff. It is anti-fascist. It is anti-racist. There's so much commentary in Babylon 5. So I'm sure he would bring that to it. It was done really well, and I'm sure he would do it really well again here. He's not the only option, but he's one. I think given that I would like it to go in a more serialized direction, he seems like a perfect route to go down for that. I think it needs more episodes again. I think 8 episodes is too short a time for this when we relaunch, whether that be on HBO Max, outside of the UK, whether or not that's Amazon Prime or Netflix, whatever streaming service they go with. I think you need more time to tell the story. So I don't expect to get back up to the kind of 13, 14 episodes a year, but maybe 10. Maybe 10 would be a good compromise. But I do think it needs this kind of like proper relaunch again to get it back into consciousness without relying on the past. An accessible new era. But I do want it tied up, all the loose ends tied up first. And I don't think there's any negatives of doing that, because whatever new version comes out is going to can still be worked on now. They're going to be completely separate. You're not going to have to coordinate really anything in terms of the production. They can be filming one version while also still filming the specials ready. They can be doing all the pre-production on one. They can be getting it ready. So if that's going to take that time anyway, if that's going to take, say, 2 years to get ready, why not fill that gap in those 2 years with a couple of Russell D. Davies helmed Christmas specials, BBC funded, just to tide us over until we get to the point where that new iteration is ready. Because remember, we don't need a huge gap for a new iteration to breathe life into a show. That's been proved before. Again, John Pertwee's era started 6 months after Patrick Troughton's ended. The BBC were really worried at that point in Patrick Troughton's time about the ratings. And then they did this massive relaunch, completely changed the format of the show, and suddenly it's a success again. And you can do that without a gap. You don't have to have a gap in order to revitalize the show. So work on the new one, take as long as it needs to get it into the right place, with the right streamer, with the right creative team. And in the meantime, have a couple of specials. What do you think about that idea? Let me know in the comments below. Let me know what you think you would do instead, if you don't like it. And don't forget to subscribe for more Doctor Who videos here on this channel. Oh, and I've also got a Patreon now, so if you fancy hopping over to that and supporting the channel, I would be eternally grateful. There's various tiers you can sign up to with various rewards and stuff, and I would, of course, much appreciate it, and it would help me fund getting various things that I get for the channel, like the books for the canon catch-up and stuff like that. So, thank you for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Goodbye.